Hi, I'm Brandon. Let's dive in the history of our solar system. Our solar system is amazing. It's filled with many different worlds spread out over huge spaces, all circling around the sun like a big clock. The smaller planets close to the sun are rocky. At least one of them, Earth, has life on it. The giant planets farther out are made of gas and ice. They have rings and moons, like mini solar systems of their own. There are also small worlds like asteroids and comets, and bigger ones like Pluto and Ceres. So how did all these planets and things come to be? How did they end up where they are now? Let's take a look at the story of our solar system, based on what we know from space missions, studying from Earth, and computer simulations by scientists. A long time ago, the universe started with a big explosion called the Big Bang. But our solar system came much later, about 4.6 billion years ago. It began as a huge cloud of dust and gas left over from old stars exploding, like the leftovers from a fireworks show. This cloud, swirling around the middle of our galaxy, was mostly made of hydrogen, with some other stuff like helium and heavier elements made by those old stars. Over thousands of years, the cloud got pulled together by its own gravity and turned into hot, dense baby stars. One of these became our sun. It kept gathering more stuff for about 50 million years, until the pressure and heat in its center got so strong that it started making energy by fusing hydrogen into helium. And then, boom! The sun started shining. This energy pushed back against the sun's gravity and stopped it from getting bigger. The sun is still doing this today and will keep shining for about 5 billion years more. After about 500 million years, the sun moved away from its siblings and kept orbiting around the center of our galaxy by itself. While the sun was getting itself together, tiny bits of dust and rock in the disk around it started bumping into each other and sticking together. In just a few years, they grew into bigger objects hundreds of meters across. This kept happening for thousands of years, forming bigger things the size of mountains. Then, these started pulling in other things around them with their gravity. In the hotter part of the disk close to the sun, the planets were made mostly of rock and metal because it was too warm for things like water to turn into solid ice. This went on for about 100 million years, until only 4 big planets were left: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. At some point, a big thing the size of Mars crashed into Earth, and the stuff that got knocked off formed our moon. Mercury might have also had a big crash, which is why its inside is mostly made of metal. Other stuff that got knocked off might have floated away instead of forming a moon. In the colder part of the disk farther from the sun, the planets were made mostly of gases and ices. Jupiter formed first, less than 3 million years after the solar system began. Saturn came next, but it didn't get as much stuff because Jupiter took most of it. Uranus and Neptune got more ices like water and ammonia, which is why we call them ice giants. Some scientists think there might have been more ice giants that got kicked out of the solar system. Jupiter's strong gravity stopped any planets from forming in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Instead, it broke up big things into smaller pieces, so now it's just a bunch of rocks and metal flying around. Ceres, the biggest thing in the asteroid belt, is different because it has a lot of ice and organic stuff. It probably formed farther away and moved closer. While the rocky planets were forming close to the sun, smaller planets beyond Neptune were crashing into each other and sticking together. This is how Pluto and other icy objects in the Kuiper belt formed. There used to be more stuff there, but it's spread out now. Some of the moons around other planets might have formed this way too. Jupiter's strong gravity pulled in a bunch of stuff to make big moons like Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Saturn's moon Titan formed the same way. Some moons around the outer planets might have been wandering around by themselves and got caught by the big planet's gravity. After that, things calmed down a bit. The sun's wind blew most of the leftover dust and gas away, so the planets didn't get any bigger. Giant planets move around. The giant planets didn't start where they are now. There wasn't enough stuff in the disk for Uranus and Neptune to form where they are. The Kuiper belt also started closer to the sun than it is now. Computers say that about 4.1 billion years ago, Jupiter and Saturn moved closer together because of all the stuff in the Kuiper belt. This made their orbits line up in a special way. As they moved, they pushed Uranus and Neptune farther away from the sun. This sent a lot of stuff from the Kuiper belt flying all over the place. Some got pushed out of the solar system, and some stayed in a big ring around the sun called the Oort cloud. Most comets come from there. Some of the stuff that got pushed around crashed into the inner planets, making big holes on them. Scientists call this the late heavy bombardment. Life and destruction. All these crashes heated up the inner planets and our moon. There were lots of volcanoes for about 500 million years. Some of the water and other stuff from the outer parts of the solar system might have ended up on the inner planets because of all the crashes. The moon and Mercury couldn't keep much of this stuff because they're small. But some of it might still be frozen in shadowy spots. Venus might have had oceans for a long time, but something happened and now it's really hot. Mars might have had water and rivers a long time ago, but most of it went away. Its moons might have come from big crashes or from stuff floating around after a crash. Mars still has volcanoes today. Earth kept its water and got life. The oldest life we know about is 3.5 billion years old. About 2.5 billion years ago, some tiny plants started making oxygen, which changed the air we breathe. Earth is still changing because of volcanoes and stuff. More space exploration. How do we know all this? Scientists look at old rocks and use computers to make guesses. They also send spaceships to take pictures and bring back rocks. In the future, we'll learn even more. There are rocks near Jupiter that might show where it used to be. A spaceship called Lucy is going to visit some of them. Another spaceship from Japan will bring back rocks from Mars' moon Phobos to see where it came from. We need more missions to Uranus and Neptune too. Lots of countries and companies are sending spaceships to the moon. They'll bring back different kinds of rocks to help us understand more about Earth and the moon. We still have a lot to learn, and we'll keep learning more as we keep exploring space. What do you think about all of that? Please subscribe and leave your comment.